Oaks are in the genus Quercus and can be found in much of the United States, but their highest densities lie in the eastern and southeastern United States. Here at Fort Leavenworth, we have oaks both in the floodplain and the upland forest, although they are a defining species of the upland forest, which we refer to as an oak-hickory forest. Oaks are typically broken up into two different groups, the white oaks and the red oaks, with distinct differences between them. Red oaks, like this one here, usually have smooth bark with shallow furrows. Their leaves also always have tips that have bristles at the end, and they take about a year after the pollen reaches the flower to germinate. Members of the white oak group lack bristles at the tips of their lobes, which are usually more round in shape. The appearance of their bark is usually rough and has deep furrows, and they germinate within the same year that the pollen reaches the flower. Once you've determined the variety of oak that you have, specific identification comes down to slight differences in bark, acorn, and leaves. So let's take a close look at some of the common oak species here at Fort Leavenworth. The red oak, Quercus ruba, can grow to heights of 110 feet tall, and as the name would suggest, is part of the red oak group. So their leaves have bristled tips, usually numbering 7 to 11. They're also alternate and simple and grow 5 to 8 inches in length. The sinuses reach about 1/3 to 1/2 the distance to the midvein. Acorns are almost completely round in shape to oval and measure 1/2 to a full inch in length. The caps cover about 1/4 of the nut and have scales that are highly compressed with almost no loose edges. The bark of the red oak is generally described as smooth with shallow furrows and wide flat-topped ridges. The furrows can appear red on certain sized trees and have been described by some as appearing like ski slopes. Pin oaks, Quercus palustris, can grow to heights of 110 feet tall and are part of the red oak group. Their leaves are simple and alternate and grow from 3 to 6 inches in length with 5 to 9 bristles at the tips of each of their lobes. Their sinuses nearly reach the midvein of the leaf and generally have less surface area than other oak species. The bark is thin and smooth with shallow furrows and appears gray-brown with occasional reddish tones. Bur oaks can grow to over 100 feet tall and have horizontally sprawling branches more so than most of the other oak species. Their leaves are simple and alternate and lack bristles because they're in the white oak group. They have 3 to 4 lobes on each side and can be 6 to 12 inches in size. Acorns of the bur oak can grow quite large, up to 2 inches in length, with a cap that covers 1/3 to 2/3 of the nut. They also have knobby scales that end up with hair-like fringes around the edges. The bark is grayish-brown with deep furrows and large flat ridges. The white oak, Quercus alba, can grow to heights of 110 feet tall, and as the name would suggest, is part of the white oak group. Their leaves, which are simple and alternate, lack bristles on the ends. They grow to about 5 to 9 inches in length and have 3 to 6 lobes on each side. Those lobes have rounded ends and have deep sinuses that reach almost all the way to the midvein. Acorns measure 3/4 of an inch to an inch in length and have caps that cover 1/4 of the nut. Caps have scales that are flat and tight. The bark of the white oak is light gray with shallow furrows and flat plate-like ridges. Chinkapin oaks can grow 80 to 90 feet tall and are part of the white oak group. Their leaves are simple and alternate and can grow from 4 to 8 inches long, but unlike other oaks, lack deep lobes, instead having 8 to 14 teeth that go around the margin of the leaf. They also come to a sharp point at the tip. Acorns measure 1/2 an inch to 3/4 of an inch and appear in clusters when still in the tree. The cap covers about half of the nut and has scales that are flat and tight. The bark is grayish-brown and has shallow fissures with flat ridges that are somewhat flaky. One of the most important roles that oaks play in their ecosystem is by providing food for other species in the form of acorns. Acorn production is actually quite interesting thanks to a phenomenon called boom and bust years. In boom years, oaks synchronize and produce more than usual amounts of acorns. For species that eat acorns almost exclusively, this is a beneficial thing. Their populations tend to increase, and predators and parasites that feed on them also tend to increase. In bust years, there's little to no acorn production, and species that rely on acorns have to look for other forage and tend to have population decreases, as well as predator and parasite decreases. So oaks have a very large impact on the food webs and ecosystems in which they exist. When it comes to specific examples of relationships that oaks have in the forest, we look towards the southern flying squirrel. Southern flying squirrels use mass-producing trees like oaks and hickories not only for the majority of their diet, but also for nesting sites. They pick standing dead trees like this snag here, or trees that already have cavities in them as their nesting sites. They're listed as a species in need of conservation by the Kansas Department of Wildlife and Parks, and thanks to efforts by Fort Hays State University in collaboration with Kansas State University, their existence has been reconfirmed in both the upland and floodplain forest here at Fort Leavenworth. And thanks to the protections that both of these forests have and the mature trees growing within them, The forests of Fort Leavenworth can be considered one of the strongholds of the Kansas populations of southern flying squirrels. Colonial uses for oaks center around woodworking, with oaks being used for things like shipbuilding, cabinetry, flooring, ornamental trim, and much more. Red oaks have been found to have higher mechanical strength and are favored in applications where strength is needed. Oak bark possesses a lot of tannins or tanninoids, compounds that make the bark taste bitter. This helps protect them against predators and parasites. Historically in Europe, hides were cured with tannins in a process called tanning. Oaks of various species were used by indigenous peoples for many reasons. Most notably, the nuts were ground down into meal and used to make bread and other baked products. The Cherokee used the bark as an antiseptic and a cure for dysentery. Hey, Jacob here. We hope you liked that video and learned something. If you'd like to see some of our other resources, check out the link in the video description.